Texas state title. So, like you said, Paul, she's on the start list. It's just whether or not we actually see her as we're going down the starting line right now. And let's see if we can get a glance to see if Leachman will see her in the black and gold Nike Elite kit, which at this point I do not see her. So if she's not on the start line, Paul, I feel like the individual race becomes kind of wide open then.
She's bid 10:43, which we keep an eye out for here in the midst of that chaos as the racers get set to race at the line. Again, 3 laps of this course that constitutes 5,000 meters will get splits at lap 1 and lap 2. So if Leachman is in there somewhere and doesn't appear at the front of our pack in the Gator Chase camera, then we'll have to wait to confirm her absence here in about 6 minutes from now. But the best of the region have come together here in Texas, waiting for those final instructions, the thumbs up from the starter, and about set for racing.
Thumbs up, ready to go. Let's get rocking and rolling, Paul.
Sunny day in Texas as they are ready at the line. 2024 Nike Cross Regionals South Girls Championship race about to unfold. The South region for Nike Cross Regionals in 2024, the Girls Championship race over 5,000 meters. Up and out and on to these soccer fields that afford them a pretty flat, safe, and wide open space to get into a rhythm of the racing. And then, of course, into those woods for the kind of the second half of each and every one of these loops. And that's where the spectators are heading right now, as these girls will come off these soccer fields and then take a pretty demonstrative right-hand turn, getting them into that wooded portion.
So we talked a little bit about Leachman and whether or not she's going to be in this race. So let's just say she's not in this race. What contenders are now at the front? Let's talk about Lily Bashirs, the Arkansas state champion who also won Chili Pepper this year, a phenomenal, much improved junior season she's had. Then you have Macy Wingard out of Texas representing the Bengals, another Texas state champion. Aline Lotta from the South Texas Heat Homeschool, which Texas is so big, you have a homeschool state championship division. And then you also throw in like Sophia Bendit from Universal City, and then the teammates from Flower Mound, Adeline Bennett and Alexandra Fox.
Yeah, Alexandra Fox came in as the third highest returnee from a year ago at this regional. She finished 7th and went on to Nike Cross Nationals, finishing in 61st position. So 90 seconds in, you see the lower left hand of your screen, the athletic course tracker, and then below that, the elevation tracker, which in the state of Texas reads kind of like your, I don't know, it might need some medical attention. It's almost a flat line, but that is here the case. The racing and the complexity of the racing is really traversing the course structure with these wooded, narrow areas, which don't afford you a lot of opportunities to get around people. And that's probably more important for the team race behind these leaders than it is in front.
And this is what's really going to come down to, is more of a team race rather than the individual race out front. I mean, especially with Leachman potentially out of the lineup, which at this point I do not see her at the front, because usually if that were the case, she'd be well ahead of the rest of the field. I mean, that was the story last year when she ran away and ran 16:07, which I think at the end of the day she won by close to a minute or so.
Yeah, that is the course record from a year ago, so we'll keep an eye on that. They come out of the initial wooded area and into this kind of grove in the middle of the woods, and then a little, as you see there on the course tracker, some twists and turns. Does give you a chance to kind of look behind you to see who's in the field. And I already am struck by, and this is often the case between the girls and the boys races, this girls race spreading out a lot quicker than the boys race did.
And it's going a lot faster. That's what probably we're going to expect right here, because we saw a conservative kind of start in that boys race, and it showed with a 4:52 first mile, which again, I say that and I'm like, well, that doesn't sound slow, but it is a little bit slower for these guys nowadays.
So 3 minutes into the racing, and they'll get back into the woods here for a moment and then get back onto the soccer fields to conclude the first of 3 laps around this race. Again, our lap splits approximately at each of the first and second miles of this race, just beyond the 3-mile mark, over 5,000 meters. And look at that crowd already aligning the course here, trying to cheer on these leaders in the early going.
It's interesting, Paul, that, there's still a lot of girls up front, though, and we say it's kind of like, filing out a little bit, but maybe it's not going out as fast as we thought it was, and maybe it's just those girls are just, setting the tone, and then just relatively running comfortably. So we'll see what our first mile has.
Bottom of your screen, the rest of the field as they get themselves through this first of 3 laps. 4 minutes elapsed on the clock here at Nike Cross Regional South in the girls' championship race.
Yeah, we'll get a better sense once they go through that time and mat of who is up front. I mean, it would be easier if it was Elizabeth Leachman that were in the field, because then we know exactly who's out front. But at this point, just because there's a lot of names that, not necessarily yes, at the state level, they're great and they're state champions, but the national level, they don't get a lot of that attention. So this is a little new for them and new for us as well.
So from high above, a good look at that lead group now, which is 8 here in the front. And then back to the chase pack, as it were. And they'll come to the line here momentarily as we're nearing 5 minutes elapsed on the clock in this girls' championship race at Nike Cross Regionals. And we'll set the field here of the leaders here in just a moment as they finally cross the timing pad for the first time this afternoon.
So I believe on the far right, or at least on the outside right, I believe that's the Arkansas State champion, Lily Bashirs, right there. Currently it looks like second position or so. But again, though, we'll get a better sense once this mass goes right over the timing mat. And yes, it is Lily Bashirs right in the front. Then Sophia Bendit, Macy Wingard, Aline Lotta, Gabby Bishop. And look who's there. Elizabeth Leachman's in the mix.
So validated finally, and maybe taking a bit more of a conservative approach to the race here. And again, you can be in the top 5 and still get yourself to nationals. And that may be as much as you could say predictably about what she would probably say if she eventually wins this race is, I just want to be here. I want to be in a position to make the spot to get back to nationals.
There you see her bib 1043 with the Nike Elite kit. So to your point, Paul, she's just here, she's just feeling out the race, and depending on where she's at, with maybe a mile to go, maybe that's when she starts opening up, because this is a qualifier. You don't necessarily, this is not going to decide if you win a national championship. This is just to get to Nike Cross Nationals. So if you're in the top 5 individuals, awesome. That's all you really need to do.
So we keep an eye on that team score as well. Pretty good battle here between Flower Mound, and now Carroll has moved into second. That is Bridgeland in third in 92 points. And again, early going here, top 5 of your runners, as many of these teams have brought a full squad of 7 to the race. That is the team score here through the first lap of 3 in the South.
And these were the top 2 teams last year, Paul, with Flower Mound coming up top over Carroll, winning 40-78. A little bit closer battle now. It's about 70-98. And so far, Flower Mound in complete control. And, Carroll, kind of a little bit surprising. They're ahead of Bridgeland and Rogers, although it's still early in the race. The scores will adjust once we get into the latter half.
So back into the wooded area here, 7 minutes elapsed on the clock. And if you're tuning back in from the start of the race, where we were talking about the potential absence of the reigning champion of this race, Elizabeth Leachman, she is in the race among those leaders here, but taking a bit more of a conservative approach to the racing versus what we saw her last year do, which was set the new course record in a blistering time of 16:07.
Knowing her as a competitor, I definitely for sure know she was not going to miss this race. I mean, you have the opportunity to go back to nationals. How could you say no to that opportunity, especially being the defending champion in this race? And you want to prove to the people that you are still in the mix to be in that All-American conversation, and you are still nationally relevant. I think that's what the statement is here today, Paul. It's like showing, and now we could see a little bit of a surge from her on the inside. She's right next to Bashirs, and I think Wingard, and they're still bunched up right there, Paul. There's 6 girls in that mix, and I don't think maybe any of them are on a team. Yeah, none of them are on a team right now.
So again, only 5 will get automatic selections if they're not connected to a team that also advances. So 6 girls here potentially for 5 individual invites to Nike Cross Nationals in December as they work their way around kind of that chicane on this F1 Las Vegas weekend as they get back themselves into the wooded area for the second time on this second lap of 3 girls championship racing in the South from Texas.
So these girls have a lot of things in common. State champions. They're all battling against each other. Now, it may be at different classifications, but now you're putting the best of the best against each other, and that's what's setting us up here for this final last mile and a half or so.
And we noted in that grove that Leachman looked like she was trying to make a demonstrative move on the inside, but then just kind of ran out of space to make that move when they made another turn in those S-curves. She kind of got pinched out from getting around the leaders. That includes Bashirs and Bendit and Wingard, but we'll keep an eye here on what happens as they emerge from the woods, and they'll get back onto that wide expanse of these turf fields at Bear Branch Park, and will afford a lot more space and room to make some strategic decisions going into that third and final loop.
And that's what the boys were able to kind of figure out too. Once they hit the soccer fields the third time, that's when Kanan Leder made his definitive move. That's like, all right, this is my chance to get around this wooded area and out in the opening, because like you said so many times, is when you're in the woods, it's very narrow and it's really hard to maneuver and make moves around. So if you're going to make a move, you better do it on the soccer fields.
Well, and they'll make the move out of the woods here and back and onto the field as they'll conclude this second lap of 3, and still a group of 6 girls running stride for stride. 10.5 minutes into the race.
A lot of them are probably all shocked right now as to why Elizabeth Leachman is still racing with them just based off the credentials. But again, playing it safe. You know, as I said, she's been battling injuries all season long and maybe not in the tip-top shape. But now we see maybe somebody on the outside making a move and some girls trying to counter those moves, go back and forth with each other. Lots of surges expected to be happening here soon, Paul.
I think Leachman took a look at her watch as she'll see about 11 minutes elapsed on the clock. They'll get to that second loop timing mat here momentarily, and we'll get that full group of 6 that are here in the front, with Leachman going to be looking like maybe she's going to be officially in the lead with a lap to go. She does lead that group that includes Wingard, Bashirs, Latta, Bendit, and Bishop. That's the group of 6 with a lap to go.
A little over a second separating those 6 out front, and then you have the top runner from Flower Mound in Alexandra Fox in that kind of that chase pack position, just 12 seconds behind, and trying to see if she can put her team atop the team standing still. And you know, Richland's having a good second half right now. You got Lily Fawcett, Rowan Sacked running really well in 9th and 10th position. So lots of different things could happen on the team and an individual side this last lap.
So the leaders are back and awaiting that big right-hand turn that'll take them back into the woods, that big downhill, which on previous occasions here at Nike Cross Nationals, Nike Cross Regionals has led to some slipping and sliding, but for the most part, pretty steady in the ability to keep that footing in place. And, you know, Leachman has taken a lot of looks at the watch, I'm noticing here in the last, few hundred meters, still trying to insert what looks like a little bit of pace into this race and see if she can start to wind it up here, as Macy Wingard there next to her on the left side of your screen, just trying to keep everyone within contact of each other.
I'm not saying that she's probably looking at her time, but maybe they're not the great accurate reading by any means, but maybe she's looking at her heart rate and kind of seeing like where her heart rate is at. Like, is she feeling good? Is she not? Like, it really, I mean, as little people think about that, like the heart rate really does come into factor sometimes.
And here are the crowds urging on these leaders as they'll get back to that grove and the twists and turns that will afford them a little bit of a chance to see that they've now officially and completely broken away from the rest of the field. Leachman, maybe with a few strides here ahead of that group behind her. with Wingard in second.
I want to go real quick to the team race, and we just saw it on the left-hand side of the screen. Two teams tied at second and third. Now it's Carroll with the slight advantage over Bridgeland. It was at 75 points. Now it's a 1-point differential between those two teams. Flower Mound in control, but really it's a battle between those two teams in Carroll and Bridgeland right now.
And again, one of the reasons those scores remain dynamic is they're pulling the unattached athletes out of the race and official results and then rescoring it with the runners that are attached to teams. So could be that you could be in 15th place, but if you have a number of unattached athletes, you'd actually have a lower stick by virtue of that change in the scoring system. So we'll keep an eye on that. Just 1 point differentiating an automatic spot and then a hope to be a at-large invite to Nike Cross Nationals. But this lead is not a lead anymore for Elizabeth Leachman. In fact, she now finds herself in second.
And 5 girls looking like they're trying to break away, and then 6 kind of falling off pace. But what a move right here we've seen from Lily Bashirs. No fear at all whatsoever. Again, the Arkansas State champion has had a much improved season, got a huge win at the Chili Pepper Invitational, and is trying to put another stamp on her junior resume.
Yeah, she really put some space between her and Leachman and the rest of the field. Again, as Keenan pointed out earlier in this race, 6 girls in that lead pack, all of whom are not attached to a team that's factoring in to the team race. So 6 runners vying for 5 invites to Nike Cross Nationals.
And this could be a huge point right here if Lily Bashirs can get this for Rogers, especially when you're in the team race. And at this point, Rogers is currently sitting in 5th. They're far back right now in 2nd and 3rd, but anything you can do for your team to get that single point is what really counts.
15 and a half minutes coming up on the clock here as, again, Leachman set the course record here a year ago in 16:07.6. That is going to be safe for another year, would appear, though Leachman now trying to hold on to her spot in the top 5. As you see the athletic course tracker showing where they are in relations to the finish line, just going to get out of this wooded area and then back up and on to the field turf for the race to the finish line. And now finally emerging is Bashirs.
Similar to what we saw in the boys' race. We saw Caden Leonard emerge by himself, and this is what we're seeing with Lily Bashirs. But, talk about a bounce-back performance from finishing 63rd a year ago and now in contention to be a Nike Cross Regional champion.
Well, we saw her perform well at Chili Pepper earlier in the year, kind of setting the tone for what would eventually turn into a championship season. You see Leachman back there. Looks like she's still battling and moving back into second, but that's a pretty good battle for second and third. But Bashirs in control here and getting ready to make the turn for home.
Has looked great this entire race. Has actually probably looked the most relaxed out of all the racers today, Paul, and she has earned this win based on how she's been able to plan out this race.
Closing in on 17 minutes on the clock here, and that final turn and into the home straight. Lily Bashirs out of Arkansas, their 6A state champion, is now a regional champion here in the South.
And now Leachman's coming in right there in second place, just going to the arms and doing everything she can. She is going to be safely on to Nike Cross Nationals along with Sophia Bendit. And we'll see who's our 4th and 5th again, because they're all individuals finishing here. Macy Wingard finishes in 4th, and then this looks like Aline Lotta rounding out the top 5 individuals.
And then that tough spot to be in for Gabby Bishop, who will finish in 6th. And, it's not unprecedented. We have had individuals decline invitations for whatever reason, so she'll have to wait and see if she can get advanced as part of the 5 that would be representing the South here as they continue to come across the line. We saw Alexandra Fox finish in 7th, Rowan Sackey finishing in 8th, Adeline Bennett in 9th, and Bella Nelson of the Owasso Striders rounding out the top 10 as they continue to populate there below. And we keep an eye on that all-important team race. Again, 2 of 5 for both Bridgeland and Flower Mound have come across the line here as we await their top 5 as there was just a point differential between Flower Mound and Bridgeland after 2 laps for that all-important second spot to Nike Cross Nationals.
So I'm just looking at the team race right now, at least for how many individuals have crossed that finish line so far. Flower Mound looks like they got 4 of their girls across in the top 20. Then Bridgeland, they appear to just have had 2 in the top 20. Don't see a lot of the Carroll athletes in that top 20 mix, but again, we'll see. It's in championship style racing, it really doesn't, I mean, it's because there's so many different teams, like those points are all over the place. So even if you finish within the 30s or in the 30 placings, like you could probably have 3 other girls in that spot, and it's the majority of points right there.
And now for the first time, we see one team with 5 across the line officially. They're still working out the placings, again, taking all those unattached athletes out of the list. Flower Mound with 5 across and still waiting for Bridgeland and Carroll to get their 5 across the line.
I think it's a safe bet we can say the first 6 individuals won't count part of the team race.
Yeah, and here's Carroll finally now 5 across the line. So waiting for those team scores now to be added up, and they'll do it in real time here shortly. And again, it's really more the anointing of Flower Mound as the champion once again. There are the unofficial scores, and now let's watch the dynamics of this Carroll versus the Woodlands and Bridgeland, and it's going to just change here dramatically over the next few seconds.
Shaking my head back and forth. Now Carroll's back on top with a 2-point advantage. It was just 1 point for Bridgeland. We saw this a lot, Carroll, 1 point now. I'm just going to let it play out here and see what happens.
Yeah, like watching the stock market on a busy trading Monday. It's going to be down to the number 5 runner, and that has often been the case, the difference maker between getting a team advanced to Nike Cross Nationals. And for those who are on the outside not finishing in those top 2, there is still an afforded pathway to Portland, and that is through the at-large selection. But to do that, you're going to have to wait till everything is done, and then the committee will make a decision based on what they saw in the strength of racing and the strength of teams all over the rest of the country.
If I'm a betting man, though, I think it's a safe bet to say Flower Mound won this race, just based on the team score right now.
It does seem like a safe bet, but we're going to keep an eye on that scoring. 3 points now, the difference between Carroll and Bridgeland. Now they're tied.
Okay, so then now they're 2-point differential. You've jinxed it, Paul.
Well, I'm just trying to keep people engaged in the process here, and I don't expect we're done yet, and we're not. They're now 98-98. So that is going to be what's going to have to have us waiting here for the dynamic, and I don't know what I guess there is a tiebreaker to breaking the tie for second, and which team would get the other automatic bid.
The 6th runner.
6th runner. And right now that would... We'll have to go out. I think both their runners came in the 60s. Ooh. Carroll was 60th. Bridgeland was 64th.
And actually, all the runners finished within that point spread. Like all 7 of their runners were right there with each other. So really, the race within the race was between the 5th and 6th and 7th runners in that last mile or so.
Flower Mound was the last team to get an at-large bid from the South. That was just 2 years ago, so that bodes well for the strength of this region. And right now, 3 points, the differential between Carroll and Bridgeland. We'll keep an eye on that, but really want to talk about the performance by Lily Bashirs, who took the victory here, and she's now with Craig Ingalls at the finish.
Up, runnerspace. We're back with the women's individual champion, Lily Bashirs. What was the race plan today, dude?
I was just gonna try to go out and get top 5 and try to help my team get less points.
Yeah. Wow. So you ended up winning. At what point in the race did that happen?
Over there, about the 800 to go. I just decided to go, and I guess it worked.
And you seem like you're totally fine. You're not even out of breath or anything. Are you excited for nationals in Portland?
It's gonna be a little hilly. I'm not really used to hills in Arkansas, so it might be a challenge, but we'll see.
Yeah. Okay, so this season was the goal at all to make this race, or is this all a surprise to you?
I mean, the goal was to get top 5, of course, but I definitely was not trying to go for the win today.
Wow, well, everyone's just as impressed as you are. How did the team end up?
I don't think we got top 2, but everybody did really good. I'm just proud of how far we come this season. We won our state meet, so next year we'll come back and try to get top 2.
That's awesome. Well, I'm sure everyone back at home is proud of you and cheering for you, but you did awesome today, and we can't wait to see you race in Portland.
Thank you.
Good job. That was awesome.
Thanks very much, Craig. You know, the good news is Glenavere Golf Course, I wouldn't call it hilly in an Oregon sort of way.
No, but those last little climbs up into the final stretch is a little bit of a challenge. Although, I mean, if you're not used to the hills, Paul, like that course can be a little deceiving to some people.
Well, like Lily said, she came in hoping to be in the top 5, did not expect to have the victory on a day where we didn't even know if the reigning champion, Elizabeth Leachman, was going to make the start line. In fact, she did, and ran more than a minute slower than she did a year ago, still finishing in second. Kind of almost amplifies the performance we witnessed last year, but gutsy performance by her to get herself back to Nike Cross Nationals.
It doesn't matter how you do it, you did it. Like, I think that's the most important thing. And whatever she's been dealing with this season, it seems like, it's kind of putting it into the past and now focusing on what she can accomplish just based off what she's been able to do this season. So congratulations to her. Congratulations to the top 5 individuals that crossed the line. You're